During a call with her friend, she whispered, "What if he proposes? How do I say no without laughing in his face?" They both giggled. I heard every word. I didn't argue. But weeks later, when she finally saw a velvet box on the table, it wasn't what she expected inside. The sound that broke my life was a giggle. A small, conspiratorial little sound that trickled through the air vent from the living room into my workshop. I was in my happy place, sanding down a piece of black walnut, the smell of sawdust in the air. This is what I do. I'm a woodworker. I own a business that builds high-end custom furniture. It's a good business, a very good business. But my girlfriend of 3 years, Clara, always just called it my cute little hobby. She was on the phone with her best friend, Jessica. They were having one of their marathon gossip sessions, which usually just faded into background noise for me. But then I heard my name, and I froze, my hand hovering over the smooth, dark wood. "He's been dropping hints all week," Clara was saying, her voice a low, excited whisper. "He left a jewelry website open on his laptop. I think he's finally going to do it." Jessica squealed on the other end. "Oh my God, are you ready?" And then came the words that changed everything. Clara's voice dropped even lower, full of a kind of mocking contempt. "Ready for what? What if he proposes? How do I say no without laughing in his face?" They both giggled. That sound, it was the sound of my own execution. "Seriously," Clara continued, "he's sweet and all. He's a good-for-now guy, safe, stable. But he's not my endgame. You know who I'm talking about." I knew. She was obsessed with this real estate developer she'd met once at a gallery opening, a guy who reeked of new money and cheap cologne. "But a ring is a good insurance policy," she said. "It buys me time, keeps him happy, and looks great on Instagram. I'll give it a year, maybe 2, and then I'll trade up." I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stood there in my workshop, covered in sawdust, and listened as the woman I was planning to spend my life with laid out her plan to use me as a placeholder, a stepping stone, a safe investment until a better one came along. I had been looking at rings, not just browsing. I had a custom design being made, a simple, elegant ring that I thought reflected her. Now I realized it reflected a person who didn't even exist. The hurt was a physical thing, a punch to the gut that left me winded, but it passed quickly, replaced by an ice-cold clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a character assessment, delivered by the subject herself. I'm a builder. I look at plans, I assess materials, and I identify structural weaknesses. The foundation of my relationship, I realized, was rotten to the core. You don't patch rot, you demolish it. I didn't storm out and confront her. I didn't yell. That's what she would have wanted. Drama, emotion, a fight she could manipulate and turn back on me. No, I just went back to work. I finished sanding the piece of walnut, my movements precise and controlled. She came into the workshop an hour later, all smiles, and wrapped her arms around my neck from behind. "What you working on, babe?" she asked, kissing my cheek. I looked at her, at this beautiful stranger who had been sleeping in my bed, and I smiled back. "Just finishing up a project," I said. She had no idea. I wasn't just finishing a piece of furniture. I was drawing up the blueprints for her demolition. She thought she was playing a game of chess, and I was just a pawn. She was about to find out that she was playing against the man who had built the entire board, and he was about to flip it over. Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since I became a ghost in my own relationship. 3 weeks of playing the part of the devoted, soon-to-propose boyfriend while quietly setting the stage for Clara's grand finale. Thanks for the massive response to my first post. A lot of you said to burn it all down. I prefer a more controlled demolition. It's less messy and far more satisfying. After overhearing her plan, my first move was to lean into the role she'd assigned me. The very next day, I made sure she saw me on my laptop, looking at that same jeweler's website. I even asked her, very casually, if she preferred platinum or white gold. She practically vibrated with excitement. She launched into a detailed description of her dream ring, a monstrosity with a diamond the size of a small bird's egg. I just nodded and smiled, making mental notes. "Good to know," I said. She took this as her cue to escalate. Her hints about marriage became as subtle as a foghorn. She started leaving bridal magazines around the apartment. She'd point out happy couples on the street and sigh dramatically. It was a masterful performance. All the while, she was becoming more and more entitled, acting as if the proposal was a done deal and she was already the queen of the castle. While she was busy planning her fake future, I was busy deconstructing her present. Clara's career was as an interior designer. I use that term loosely. Her business consisted of an Instagram account and a mountain of debt. She had no clients, no portfolio to speak of, except for my house. For the past year, she had been systematically taking professional photos of my apartment, which I had designed and filled with my own custom-built furniture, and passing it all off as her own work. She'd post a picture of the walnut bookshelf I spent 80 hours building with a caption like, "So pleased with how this client project came together, designed by Clara." Her ultimate goal, the project she talked about constantly, was to land the contract for the new boutique hotel being built downtown, the Hawthorne. It was being developed by a man named Marcus Harrison, a legendary, old-school hotelier known for his impeccable taste. Getting the Hawthorne contract would instantly make her a star in the city's design world. She'd been trying to get a meeting with him for months, sending unanswered emails and leaving messages with his assistant. This is where her ignorance about my cute little hobby became her undoing. She had no idea that my primary clients were architects and high-end commercial developers. Marcus Harrison had been one of my best clients for over a decade. I had furnished 2 of his previous hotels. In fact, I had a meeting scheduled with him in 2 weeks to discuss the furniture commission for the entire Hawthorne Hotel. My plan began to take shape. It had 2 parts. First, I needed to quietly and legally separate my life from hers. I met with my lawyer and had him draw up documents to dissolve our shared assets, which were minimal, as I owned the house and my business long before I met her. We also prepared a formal notice for her to vacate my property. The second part was more creative. I thought about the interior design contract for the Hawthorne. I could have just let her fail on her own, but that wasn't enough. She wanted to build her career on a foundation of my work and my money. I decided to give that opportunity to someone who actually deserved it. I knew a young designer named Evelyn. She had been an apprentice for a friend of mine. She had an incredible eye and a work ethic that put Clara to shame. But she had 0 connections. She was working a dead-end job at a big-box furniture store. Her talent completely wasted. I called her and offered her a freelance contract. I told her I was pitching a big hotel project and I wanted her to collaborate with me on a presentation. I wanted her to develop a full interior design concept for the hotel lobby that would complement the furniture I was proposing to build. I gave her a generous budget for materials and a handsome fee for her work. She was so grateful she was nearly in tears. For the next 2 weeks, while Clara was busy picking out her engagement announcement outfit, I was having secret meetings with Evelyn. We worked in a rented studio space across town. Her ideas were brilliant. She was a true artist. Together, we put together a presentation that was, in a word, breathtaking. We built a 3D model, sourced fabric samples, and created a complete vision for the Hawthorne's public spaces. Meanwhile, at home, Clara was becoming unbearable. She started making demands, talking about the changes she wanted to make to our house after the wedding. She wanted to paint my workshop white and turn it into her new office. She told me my furniture was a little too rustic and that she had some great ideas for a more modern look. She was already redecorating a life she was never going to have. The day of my meeting with Marcus Harrison arrived. That morning, Clara was in a particularly smug mood. She'd somehow managed to get a low-level informational meeting with Harrison's junior marketing assistant for the following week, and she was acting like she'd already won the contract. "Don't be surprised if I'm the one paying for dinner soon," she said with a wink as I left for my boring work meeting. I met Evelyn at a coffee shop near Harrison's office. She was nervous but excited. I told her that I was going to present her as the lead designer on the project. "Your work deserves to be seen," I told her. "Just be yourself. You've got this." We walked into that meeting, and Marcus Harrison's face lit up when he saw me. We were old friends. He had no idea I was even in a relationship. I introduced Evelyn, and for the next hour, we walked him through our presentation. He was blown away. He loved the furniture designs, but he was absolutely captivated by Evelyn's overall vision. He kept saying she had the exact aesthetic he'd been searching for. At the end of the meeting, he looked at me, then at Evelyn. "The furniture commission is yours, of course, old friend," he said to me. Then he turned to her. "And young lady, the interior design contract for the entire hotel is yours, if you'll have it." Evelyn just stared at him, speechless. I watched as this talented, hard-working woman was handed the opportunity of a lifetime, the very opportunity Clara felt she was entitled to. We walked out of that office with a contract that would not only secure my business for the next year, but would launch a deserving designer's career into the stratosphere. The trap was now set. All that was left was for the target to walk into it. I had one final performance to give. The proposal. Final update. It's over. The curtain has fallen on the comedy of my relationship, and the silence is beautiful. I'm sitting in my workshop, the air smelling of fresh cut oak, and I've never felt more at peace. The night after we secured the Hawthorne contract, I set the stage. I told Clara I wanted to celebrate. I said I had a surprise for her, something we'd both been looking forward to. Her eyes lit up. This was it. The moment she'd been waiting for. I cooked her favorite meal. I opened a bottle of the expensive champagne she loved. I put on the soft, jazzy music she always said was romantic. I was the perfect picture of a man on the verge of proposing. She was glowing, practically vibrating with a smug, triumphant energy. She spent the entire dinner talking about her upcoming big meeting with Harrison's assistant, spinning fantasies about the design concepts she was going to pitch. I just listened and nodded, topping up her glass. After dinner, I led her to the living room. There, on the polished surface of the walnut coffee table, one of the pieces she'd claimed as her own on Instagram was a small black velvet box. Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at the box, then at me, her eyes wide with feigned emotion. She was a fantastic actress, I'll give her that. She was already composing the perfect Instagram caption in her head. "Go on," I said softly. "Open it." She picked it up, her hands trembling slightly with anticipation. She slowly lifted the lid, and then she just stared. Inside, nestled on the black velvet, was not a diamond ring. It was a single, ornate, old-fashioned brass key. She looked from the key to my face, her expression a mess of confusion. What is this?" she stammered. "Is this a joke?" "It's not a joke, Clara," I said, my voice calm and even. "It's the key to your new life, the one you'll be starting tomorrow morning." The confusion on her face curdled into anger. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the phone call with Jessica," I said. "The one where you talked about how you would laugh in my face if I proposed. The one where you laid out your plan to use me as a placeholder until you could trade up." I heard every word. The color drained from her face. I've never seen someone's entire world collapse so quickly and so quietly. She just stood there, speechless. "The movers will be here at 9 a.m., I continued, my voice leaving no room for argument. "They will pack up all of your belongings. The key is for the storage unit where they will be taken. I've paid for the first month. After that, it's your problem." She finally found her voice. It was a strangled whisper. "You can't do this." "I can," I said. "It's my house, and you are no longer welcome in it." The denial phase ended, and the rage began. She started screaming, calling me a monster, a psycho. She said she had a right to be here. I just let her burn herself out. When she finally ran out of steam, she tried her last trump card. "Fine," she spat, her face ugly with fury. "I don't need you. I have my career. I'm going to land the Hawthorne project, and you'll see. You'll be begging me to come back." I almost felt sorry for her in that moment. Almost. I just smiled a small, sad smile. "About that," I said. "I had a meeting with Marcus Harrison yesterday. He's a wonderful man, a great client. He was so impressed with the presentation." Her eyes narrowed, suspicious. "What presentation?" "The one I gave him with the new lead designer for the project," I said. "He loved the custom furniture I'm building for the lobby, by the way. The pieces you've been featuring in your portfolio as your own work. But he was really blown away by the designer's vision. Her name is Evelyn. She's incredibly talented. He gave her the contract for the entire hotel. They signed the papers this afternoon." She just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The final support beam of her delusional world had just been kicked out. Her career, The one she was going to build on my back had been given to a complete stranger, a nobody, and it was my doing. I walked to the front door and opened it. "You can stay in the guest room tonight," I said, "but in the morning, you need to be gone before the movers arrive." "Goodbye, Clara." She didn't move. She just stood there in the middle of my living room, the velvet box still clutched in her hand as the reality of her situation washed over her. She had nothing. No fiancé, no home, no career, no portfolio. The safe guy she planned to discard had just completely and utterly discarded her. I didn't wait for a reply. I just closed the door to my workshop behind me, leaving her alone with the pieces of her shattered future. The next morning she was gone. The key was left on the table. I got a string of hateful texts later that day, but I just blocked her number. I heard through the grapevine that she had a total meltdown, that her attempt to slander me and Evelyn in the design community backfired spectacularly when people found out she was a fraud who had been stealing my work. She had to move back in with her parents in the suburbs. Her endgame turned out to be her childhood bedroom. As for me, life has never been better. The Hawthorne project is a massive success. My business is expanding, and Evelyn, well, she's not just a brilliant designer. She's an incredible person. We've been working closely together, and our partnership is becoming something more. Something real. Something built on mutual respect and shared passion, not on lies and transaction. Clara thought a ring was an insurance policy. She learned the hard way that some policies get canceled, and you don't get your investment back. She wanted to laugh in my face. In the end, I was the one who got the last laugh, and I didn't have to make a sound. During a double date, my fiancé whispered loud enough for everyone, "If I ever meet my celebrity crush, I'd drop him on the spot." The table laughed. I just finished my drink. The next morning, she found out who dropped who. The silence at the table was heavy enough to bend the silverware. It was that awful, ringing silence that follows a statement so monumentally stupid, so profoundly disrespectful, that no one knows how to react. 4 of us were sitting there, supposedly on a fun double date at one of the nicest steakhouses in the city. Me and my fiancée, Ruby, and my buddy Liam and his girlfriend of the year, Karen. The conversation had turned to celebrity crushes, the kind of light, meaningless chatter you have over a second bottle of wine. Liam had said something about some actress, and Karen had playfully swatted his arm, standard stuff. Then Ruby decided it was her turn. She leaned forward, making sure she had everyone's attention, and dropped the bomb. "Oh, that's easy," she said, her voice loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. "Chris Hemsworth, and I'm not even joking. If I ever met him, I mean ever, I'd drop him on the spot." She pointed her fork at me for emphasis. "Sorry, babe, trade-up opportunity." Karen burst out laughing, a loud, cackling laugh that made heads turn. "Oh my God, Ruby, you're horrible," she shrieked, egging her on. "But seriously, same. A girl's gotta have standards." I just stared at Ruby. We'd been together 3 years, engaged for 4 months. The wedding was 6 months away, and I had already put down non-refundable deposits on a venue that cost more than my first car. And she was sitting here, in front of another couple, publicly declaring that our entire future was subject to a chance encounter with a movie star. It wasn't a joke. It was a mission statement. It was a window into how she saw me, as a placeholder, as a temporary arrangement until something better came along. Liam didn't laugh. He put his fork down and looked at Karen, his expression unreadable. "You think that's funny?" he asked her. "What? It's a joke, Liam. Lighten up." Karen said, still giggling. "No, it's not," he said, his voice low and firm. He looked at me, a flash of understanding in his eyes. "It's disrespectful. To your partner and to your relationship. What Ruby just said was out of line, and you laughing at it is just as bad." The atmosphere at the table went from awkward to arctic. Ruby's smile vanished, replaced by a defensive glare. Karen looked like she'd been slapped. They both turned on Liam, calling him sensitive and telling him he didn't know how to take a joke. I just sat there, silent, swirling the last of my bourbon in my glass. I didn't defend him. I didn't need to. He was saying everything I was thinking. I finished my drink in one long pull, the burn in my throat a welcome distraction. I placed the glass down on the table with a soft click, and the argument stopped. All 3 of them looked at me. I pulled out my wallet, dropped a few $100 bills on the table to cover the check and a generous tip, and stood up. I think we're done here, I said, my voice completely flat. I didn't look at Ruby. I looked at Liam. I'll give you a ride if you need one. The ride home was quiet. Ruby tried to start a fight, tried to get a reaction out of me. She accused me of embarrassing her, of taking Liam's side, of having no sense of humor. I just kept my eyes on the road and gave one-word answers. By the time I pulled up to her apartment building, she still hadn't officially moved into my place, a fact for which I was now profoundly grateful. She was practically vibrating with frustration. "Are you just going to give me the silent treatment all night?" she demanded as I put the car in park. "I'm tired, Ruby. We can talk tomorrow." "There's nothing to talk about. It was a joke. You and Liam are acting like a bunch of babies." "Okay," I said. That one word seemed to infuriate her more than anything else. She stared at me, waiting for more, but I just looked out the windshield. She finally huffed, got out of the car and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I didn't watch her walk away. I just drove home. My phone buzzed about 20 minutes later. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, it's Liam. Sorry about tonight. My girlfriend acted like an idiot. Hope you're good, man." I pulled over to the side of the road and typed back, "You have nothing to apologize for. You were the only other sane person at that table. Meet me for a beer tomorrow?" His reply was instant. "Absolutely." Update 1. Liam and I met at a quiet bar the next afternoon. It was one of those old-school places with dark wood and no televisions, a place you go to actually talk. We talked for 3 hours. It was one of the most clarifying conversations of my life. It turned out we were living parallel lives. He was a contractor, a guy who worked with his hands and had built his own successful business. He was dealing with the same issues I was. Karen was constantly pressuring him for a more lavish lifestyle, fancier cars, more expensive vacations, a bigger apartment. She saw him as a walking wallet, a means to an end. The celebrity crush comment wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern. A pattern of disrespect, of entitlement, of seeing us not as partners, but as stepping stones. We both realized, sitting there over a couple of beers, that we weren't just annoyed. We were done. Completely and totally done. "So what do we do?" he asked. "We don't just break up with them," I said, a plan already forming in my head. "That's too easy. They won't learn anything. They'll just move on to the next guy and pull the same nonsense. They need to understand that their actions have real, tangible consequences." And so we made a pact. We weren't just two guys who had been disrespected. We were a team. Our first move was coordinated and silent. That evening, we both initiated the financial decoupling. I logged into my bank accounts and canceled the supplementary credit card I had given Ruby. I also called my jeweler and had a conversation about the engagement ring, a 2-carat diamond I had paid for in full. Liam's situation was a bit different. He was paying the rent on Karen's upscale apartment. Her lease was up for renewal in 2 weeks. He went to his computer and emailed the property management company, informing them that he would not be co-signing the renewal and that his financial responsibility for the unit would end on the last day of the month. The next 48 hours were quiet. Then, the first wave of panic hit. It started with Ruby. She called me, her voice frantic. "My card was just declined at the spa," she said. "I was trying to book a facial for my bachelorette party." "What's going on?" "I canceled it, Ruby." "You what? Why would you do that? The wedding is in 6 months." "Is it?" I asked. I wasn't sure. I heard it was conditional, pending a chance encounter with Chris Hemsworth. I figured, why keep funding an event that could be called off at any moment? Seems like a bad investment. The silence on the other end of the line was golden. "That was a joke," she finally sputtered. "You can't be serious. All our friends are coming. The venue is booked." "You're right," I said. "The venue is booked and paid for. Don't worry, the party is still on." I hung up before she could ask what I meant. 2 days later, it was Karen's turn. She called Liam in a full-blown meltdown. The management company for her building had slipped a non-renewal notice under her door. She was being told she had to vacate the premises in 2 weeks unless she could qualify for the lease on her own, which, with her part-time job as a boutique sales associate, was impossible. Liam handled it perfectly. He told her that since their relationship was clearly not a serious, long-term commitment, it didn't make sense for him to keep making a serious, long-term financial commitment to her housing. He wished her the best of luck in her apartment search. The girls, of course, immediately teamed up. Our phones were flooded with texts and calls, a mix of furious accusations and tearful pleading. They accused us of being monsters, of coordinating a cruel attack on them. They were right about the coordination part, at least. They tried to rally their friends to launch a smear campaign, but Liam and I got ahead of it. We each sent a simple, factual text to our respective friend groups. Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know that Ruby, Karen, and I have broken up. At a dinner the other night, she publicly stated that she would dump me on the spot for a celebrity, and I've decided to take her at her word and end things now. I wish her the best. The story was so specific, so absurd, that it was instantly believable. The sympathy they were hoping for never materialized. Instead, they were met with a wall of silence from people who were embarrassed for them. They thought the financial cutoff was the main event. They had no idea it was just the appetizer. The main course was still to come. Update 2. The past month has been a masterclass in watching someone dig their own grave with a silver spoon. After the initial shock of the financial decoupling wore off, Ruby and Karen went into full-on panic mode. Their cushy, subsidized lifestyles were evaporating before their eyes, and they didn't know how to handle it. Ruby's main focus became the wedding. In her mind, the wedding was still happening. It was her leverage. She seemed to think that the sheer momentum of the event, the social pressure, and the non-refundable deposits would force me to crawl back and beg for her forgiveness. She kept calling vendors, confirming details, acting as if nothing was wrong. She even sent out a group text to her bridesmaids to schedule a dress fitting. What she didn't know was that I had been calling the vendors too. But I wasn't canceling. I was making changes. The first hint that something was amiss came from the caterer. Ruby had called to finalize the menu, and the catering manager had asked a strange question. So, for the ice sculpture, did you want the intertwined hearts, or the two separate figures shaking hands? Ruby, confused, had said the hearts, obviously. The manager had just said, "Okay, we'll see what the other party says." The real bomb dropped about 2 weeks before the scheduled date. The formal invitations, which had already been printed with the original wedding details, were supposed to be mailed out. Ruby had been hounding me for them. I told her they were being handled. They were. Liam and I had spent an entire weekend with a graphic designer, creating a new set of invitations. The venue was the same. The date was the same. The time was the same. But the event was very, very different. The invitation read, "You are cordially invited to celebrate a new beginning at the first annual Trade Up Opportunity Gala, hosted by my name and Liam's name." Underneath, in smaller print, it continued, "An evening dedicated to celebrating loyalty, respect, and the good sense to walk away from a bad deal. All proceeds and gifts will be donated to the local Big Brothers Big Sisters chapter." We sent them to every single person on our original guest lists. The fallout was immediate and glorious. Our phones lit up, but this time it was with texts from our friends, who were dying with laughter. People were RSVPing in droves. The story of the Trade Up Gala went viral in our social circle. Ruby and Karen, of course, were apoplectic. They both got their invitations in the mail on the same day. The screaming phone calls were something to behold. They called us every name in the book. They threatened to sue us for humiliation and emotional distress. My response was simple. Sue me for what, Ruby? For throwing a charity event? For changing the purpose of a party that I paid for? You said you'd drop me for a trade-up opportunity. Liam and I decided we felt the same way. This is us. Trading up. Karen had to move out of her apartment on the 1st of the month. Liam was there with a police officer to supervise and make sure she didn't damage anything on her way out. She left in a flood of tears, her designer clothes stuffed into garbage bags, which her parents had to come and pick up in their minivan. The two of them tried to sabotage the gala, of course. They called the venue and tried to cancel the booking, but their names weren't on the contract. They posted on social media, calling us monsters and begging people to boycott the event. It had the opposite effect. It just made more people want to come and see the train wreck. The night of the gala arrived. The venue looked incredible. Liam and I stood at the entrance, greeting our guests. We had never felt more free. About an hour into the party, they showed up. Ruby and Karen, dressed in their most dramatic, attention-seeking outfits. They tried to storm past the entrance, but we were ready for them. We had hired 2 large, unimpressed security guards. "I'm sorry, ladies," one of the guards said, stepping in front of them. "Your names are not on the list." "Not on the list?" Ruby shrieked. "This is my wedding." "No, ma'am," the guard said, checking his clipboard with a theatrical slowness. "This is a private charity event, and you are definitely not on the list." They caused a huge scene, screaming and crying right in the lobby. It was exactly the pathetic, desperate display we had expected. Several of our friends filmed it on their phones. The videos were circulating among the guests within minutes. They were humiliated, and they had done it all to themselves. Eventually, the venue manager threatened to call the police, and they retreated in defeat. The party inside was one of the best nights of my life. Final update. It's been a year since the Trade Up Gala. It's funny how quickly your life can change when you finally cut out the dead weight. The event was a massive success. We raised over $50,000 for the charity, and Liam and I had an incredible time doing it. The story of that night solidified our reputations and completely destroyed theirs. Liam and I are still best friends. In fact, we went into business together. We combined his construction expertise with my business sense and started a real estate development company. We're doing incredibly well. It turns out that 2 guys who are loyal, respectful, and know the value of a good deal make pretty good partners. As for the girls, their lives have been a slow, steady decline. After the public humiliation of being turned away from the gala, they became social outcasts. No one wanted to be associated with their brand of toxic drama. Ruby had to move back in with her parents. Without my income to support her, her lifestyle of spa days and boutique shopping came to a screeching halt. She tried to sue me, of course. She claimed I owed her half the value of the wedding deposits and the engagement ring. My lawyer shut that down immediately. He presented the court with a signed statement from Liam, detailing her trade-up comment at the dinner. He also pointed out that an engagement ring is a conditional gift, and since she had effectively broken the condition of marriage with her public statement, she was legally required to return it. I had never even asked for it back. The judge dismissed her case and advised her to return my property. The last I heard, she was working a retail job at the mall, the same one she worked at in high school. Karen's fate was similar. After moving back in with her parents, she tried to find another wealthy guy to fund her lifestyle, but her reputation preceded her. She's still single, still working part-time, and from what I've seen on her now private social media, still complaining about how she can't find a man who meets her standards. The best revenge wasn't just one thing. It was the combination of everything. It was the financial cutoff that forced them to face reality. It was the social isolation that came from their own actions. And most of all, it was the gala. We took the event that was supposed to be the pinnacle of their social climbing lives and turned it into a monument to their own failure. We didn't just dump them, we replaced them, publicly and spectacularly, with a better cause and a better friendship. Liam and I are both dating again. This time, we're with women who are our partners in every sense of the word. Women who would never dream of publicly disrespecting us for a cheap laugh. We learned our lesson. And thanks to us, Ruby and Karen learned a lesson too. Sometimes when you're looking for a trade up, you just end up getting traded out.